What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Johners. This is episode 67, and this is our WWE Clash of Champions review. So we do have a special guest host with us this episode, and we'll introduce that guest host very soon. But before we do, we'd like to throw out some plugs, so you know where to find us on social media. If you're on Twitter, you can find us. Our Twitter handle is at @withjohners_pod. That's at @withjohners_pod. You can follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle is at Wrestling with Johners, and go out and search our ever popular, fun and interactive Facebook community page. Just go out and search Wrestling with Johners, and Johners is spelled Johners. Of course, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, share, and shout about the Wrestling with Johners podcast. This is your only podcast for your weekly NXT and NXT UK needs. We do cover WWE pay-per-views, of course. You're listening to this one, AEW, Progress Wrestling, New Japan. So please spread the word, tell your friends and tell your family, and help to grow this podcast so that we can continue producing quality content for you lovely listeners each and every week. So I want to introduce my guest host. He's been on this show once before. I think we reviewed Stomping Grounds together a few months back, but I'll introduce Tommy Lynch. So Tommy is famous for his YouTube channel, Watchalong Wrestling, and Tommy on the Spot. So Tommy, welcome back to the Wrestling with Johners podcast. How are you?
John, it's great to be back. I'm excited to chat about Clash of Champions with you, and thanks so much for having me back.
Yeah, no problem at all. You're very welcome. First of all, I just want to kind of check in with you, see what you've been up to recently, any kind of wrestling events or wrestling-based things that you've been involved with. I know that you're very active with your YouTube channel. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to the last couple of weeks, Tommy.
Yeah, no, last week I was able to go to both Raw and SmackDown at Madison Square Garden, where I got this Undertaker MSG shirt that I have on here.
Nice.
And it was a lot of fun. It was really cool because Madison Square Garden is the venue I grew up in, and it used to be that WWE would do shows there literally all the time. And at the end of the day, they just kind of stopped doing TV tapings there. Really in 2009, I know they did a pay-per-view in 2011 and some shows here and there, but they kind of just stopped. So it was good to see WWE come back and see Austin on Monday night, Undertaker on Tuesday. It was just nostalgia running wild. It was really cool.
Yeah, I know that Austin stole the show on Monday. I would love to have been there to have felt the atmosphere and doing what Austin does best, and Undertaker on Tuesday. But yeah, you've got your YouTube channel. You're very active on that. I actually saw your live predictions for Clash of Champions the other day, which was very entertaining as always. But tell us a little bit about your YouTube channels and your kind of wrestling vlog activities, other things that you're involved in wrestling related, Tommy.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I do a YouTube channel called Watchalong Wrestling. The hope and the goal of the channel is really to kind of bring the wrestling live experience to the viewers and to the people that tune in with me. I'm always really big on, if you chime in and you leave your thoughts, you jump in on that live chat, I'm going to shout you out on air. I'm going to share your thoughts on air. There are times, folks get a little troll-like and I can't share their thoughts, but for the most part, one of the great things about Clash of Champions, I was able to do live streams during some of the bigger matches and had a lot of people jumping in with their thoughts. And one guy was rooting for Sasha, one guy was rooting for Becky. And that's just the best to have everyone involved in there. So, whether it be the live streams, whether it be the vlogs, I try to capture that live experience. And my hope is I love to hear other people's live experiences too. That's what it's all about to me. We're all fans, and I have a great time with it. I've been able to go to a lot of shows this year. Thought I was done with the live shows for the year, but my buddy was able to gather some tickets to the NXT taping on October 2nd.
Wow.
So he's in Orlando. I don't know if I'm going to make the trip, but I hope I could, because I think it would be a lot of fun to be there for that show.
Yeah, and of course that's going to be NXT's third live show taking place on the USA Network, and that one is going to be the first one going head-to-head with Wednesday Night Dynamite, the new AEW show on TNT. So that'll be a hell of a show, and I'm sure WWE and NXT will be wanting to pull out all of the stops for that one. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic event. It's almost going to be pay-per-view quality, I should imagine. So we're very lucky, and I'll look out for you in the crowd there. And that's going to take place in Full Sail, is that correct?
Yeah, Full Sail University. Yep, my buddy lives down in Orlando, and it was one of these things where the tickets went on sale and sold out in a second, because I hear it's a really kind of intimate venue.
Yeah.
And so I was trying and just to see if I could get tickets, just on the off chance I'd be able to go. I couldn't, but he was able to get them, so he's definitely going to go, and hopefully I'll be able to join him.
Lucky man, lucky man. Looking forward to your vlog from that show also. But let's have a look at Clash of Champions. And I did watch the pre-show, and we had two matches there, one of which was quite interesting. We'll touch on that in a moment. But the first match on the kickoff was Humberto Carrillo, Lince Dorado, and Drew Gulak. Drew Gulak, of course, is the current WWE Cruiserweight Champion, and this was for the Cruiserweight Championship. So early on in this one, Dorado hits an impressive Hurricane Rana off the barricade at ringside, which was quite an interesting spot there. Carrillo then gets a 2 count from a standing moonsault. And then with Dorado up on Gulak's shoulders on the outside, Carrillo launches himself over the top rope onto Dorado with a tope. There's some interesting transitional holds between these three with plenty of back and forth action. There's a top rope Hurricane Rana spot from Dorado, but after Carrillo connects with an Aztec press on Dorado, he gets dumped into the ring post, goes to the outside and by Drew Gulak, and Gulak, ever the opportunist, he jumps onto Dorado and pins Dorado to retain his championship. So unfortunately, this was your typical cruiserweight kickoff match with very little time in the ring for these guys to tell a story. There were some impressive spots between Carrillo and Dorado, with Gulak getting the pin and retaining. So Tommy, I'm hoping that you caught the kickoff show, but this was a fun cruiserweight match. But had they had another 10 minutes and been on the main card, I'm sure it would have been twice as good. But for what it was okay. Give us your thoughts on this cruiserweight kickoff.
Yeah, it's something where I think the thing that always holds the cruiserweights back is the lack of crowd reaction. And being there for a 205 Live taping following SmackDown, where they did have a lot of the crowd actually hang out in the building because they promoted the Fiend making a live appearance after 205 Live, and it felt like literally the entire crowd sat on their hands for that entire crew. And these guys are out there killing it. They're doing everything they can, and the crowd just for whatever reason doesn't seem to really get into it. I can't figure out exactly why, because these guys are really athletic. They always give 110%. But I'm with you. I thought this was a little short. At the same time, I like that Drew Gulak was able to retain the title there. They always do a good job in kind of continuing the title reigns of each Cruiserweight champion to at least give him a chance on the top of the card. So I like that.
Yeah, that's one thing I do have to acknowledge 205 Live for. Their title, it doesn't change hands like a hot potato. The title does stay on the champion for a considerable amount of time, and Gulak is proven to be a very good champion. But going back to your point about the cruiserweights and being on the kickoff, yes, I think this will be one of the last pay-per-views where the cruiserweights will be on the kickoff, because I think they're going to be merging the cruiserweights with the NXT roster, and with them getting that second hour on the USA Network, I think that will give them a bit of a platform to have to perform in front of more of an audience that will be appreciative of their skills. Yes, we will see how that kind of changes. But the rumor is that 205 Live will be no more from about October, and the 205 Live or the Cruiserweight roster will be merging with the NXT roster. So we'll see them kind of on takeovers and things like that in the future, where they will get a bigger platform and get to perform in front of fans that are possibly less casual than the people you might find at a SmackDown, for example. But the second kickoff match, and it was a very surprising one. I think we all kind of scratched our head at this one when the music started for AJ Styles. And it was AJ Styles versus Cedric Alexander. AJ, the current United States champion, and putting his title on the line. Considering that these two were involved in the 10-man tag at Raw at MSG last Monday, with Styles been involved in many kind of top-line storylines at the moment, including getting stunned by Steve Austin. I was very surprised to see AJ Styles especially involved in this pre-show match with only 10 minutes left of the pre-show before the main show itself. So he's kind of looking at your watch thinking, well, if they're going to have a match, they haven't really got long to go. And AJ Styles was accompanied to the ring by the OC in this one. OC didn't hang around, and with Cedric getting the hometown welcome, Alexander gets a close near fall off from a Michinoku driver as soon as the bell sounds, taking the match to the veteran AJ Styles. Styles soon takes control, hitting a Styles clash on his opponent on the outside of the ring, which looked pretty brutal. However, AJ won the match after hitting a reverse DDT, a phenomenal forearm, and a second Styles Clash to get the relatively quick and easy pinfall. The match only went about 4 minutes, Tommy. There was a post-match beatdown from AJ, Gallows, and Anderson on Cedric Alexander, but more importantly, AJ Styles retains his United States Championship in a brief kickoff match. Now, Tommy, it was bad enough that AJ was involved and relegated in a kickoff match here, but it would have been even worse and more humiliating if he'd lost the title. Fortunately, he won in fairly dominant fashion. But tell us about this match. Was you as surprised as the rest of us to see AJ Styles, of all people, on the kickoff show?
Yeah, it's funny because when I was doing the live preview on YouTube, everyone was kind of talking about what match was going to be on the pre-show. I think you had even asked about it, and we were going back and forth. And I think a lot of us thought it was going to be Nakamura and Miz because that match was kind of thrown together. It didn't seem to have kind of the hype that the Alexander and AJ Styles matches had. But it's something that I think the reason they ended up moving that onto the main card is because they've just been promoting the 40th anniversary of the Intercontinental title. They had this big special they did on the YouTube where it was Orton, Christian, and The Miz talking about the Intercontinental title heritage. And I think if they put that on the pre-show, it kind of like wouldn't have made much sense with what they were going with. So this match starts, and I'm immediately thinking, all right, they're going to get the club involved. Maybe two other guys are going to come out, and they'll set up a six-man, have them kind of stand there and wait, and then start to kick off the show with a six-man tag. I'm trying to like figure out what's going on. And then I realize if they're going to have this match happen now, they always leave a couple minutes to promote the main event. So this match is not going to go more than 5 minutes. And it didn't, and I was very surprised. It's crazy to think like AJ Styles, a guy who held the world title for I think at least close to a year, and now he's on the pre-show. It's crazy. I'm sure it's something he probably didn't like, and also the crowd was really amped to see Cedric Alexander. I'm sure because he's from Charlotte, and here the crowd is. So a lot of those guys aren't even in their seats yet, so. Just didn't get the decision at all, and it was a shame because it was one of the matches I was looking forward to, and they only got 4 or 5 minutes, which you can't even really get a match going in that amount of time.
No, exactly. I mean, I personally would have put the women's tag title match in this spot, to be honest with you. But you know, they had in the end 3 women's matches on the main card. I don't think it would have done the women any disservice by having one of those dropped onto the kickoff. I would have thought the women's tag match would have been right for the pickings for a kickoff show, kickoff match, and to have AJ and Cedric take their spot would have been better for the main card, better for the viewing audience, in my opinion. But bit of a strange decision that, but yes, there was one spot in the match where AJ went to pin Cedric and pulled him up on the 2 count, and I thought, oh no, here we go. Cedric's they're gonna swerve us, and Cedric's gonna take the title. So I was relieved when AJ did manage to retain in fairly dominant fashion after a second Styles Clash there. But then we go straight into the main card then, Tommy. So the first match on the card was for the Raw tag titles. Current champions Braun Strowman and Seth Rollins versus a thrown together team of Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. They've been together a few weeks. They won a bit of a qualifier a few weeks ago to face Strowman and Rollins here at Clash of Champions. So there's a good 5 minutes in the match where Ziggler and Roode were beaten down on Rollins in their half of the ring before Strowman gets a hot tag and literally runs through his opponents. Seth gets tagged back in, but gets driven into the mat from a Robert Roode spinebuster, where Roode gets a 2 count there. But as the illegal man Ziggler gets involved on the outside, causing some distractions, Strowman comes in like a bull in a china shop, runs straight into Roode, knocking his own partner sideways in the process before Strowman tumbles to the outside himself. This allows Roode to hit a glorious DDT on Rollins to get the 3 count, giving us new Raw Tag Team Champions in the shape of Robert Roode. I can't get my head around the Robert Roode name. I still want to call him Bobby Roode, and Dolph Ziggler, of course. I think most of us would have predicted some shenanigans and a bit of a screwy finish in this match, which we got, causing a bit of a split between Rollins and Strowman leading into their Universal title match later on in the card. But I wasn't fully expecting a title change here, if I'm honest. However, it definitely made sense considering the story that they were trying to tell ahead of the Universal title match, which will be taking place later on in the show. So, Tommy, give us your thoughts on this main card opener and new Raw Tag Champions. And, you know, obviously we knew that it was going to happen, but a split between Rollins and Strowman ahead of their match later on.
Yeah, I thought they would definitely do the title change here. I just almost wish it was a legitimate tag team that was in this spot, whether it be the Revival or the Usos or whoever it was, because then you could tell the really good story. I feel like they used to do this back in the day where you'd get your two big superstars would be like teaming together against a tag team, and they wouldn't be able to function as well as a unit against like a well-oiled machine like the Revival operate. So I would have loved to see them there. But that said, it's good to see Robert Roode kind of get a spot back on the main card. I feel like for a while he wasn't doing much. It's crazy to think that his team with Gable just ended a couple months ago, and it feels like that was years ago at this point. So good to see him back on the card. And, Dolph Ziggler, he's just kind of like, I feel like he's the ultimate utility player for WWE. He fits in wherever they need him. He always has solid matches. I kind of really liked this match. I thought it was a good way to get the crowd going.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I think the crowd gets really pumped whenever they hear they get to do the burn it down. I know they do because I had people sitting next to me at MSG, on the edge of their seat, ready to just scream burn it down. And so crowd was really into that, and that got the show off on a good note, I thought.
Definitely. I think one of the main reasons that I've heard Robert Roode is getting quite a push at the moment is that Paul Heyman is a big fan of his. And since Paul Heyman's been running the show on Raw, he's been giving Robert Roode some wins, more prominently pairing him with Dolph Ziggler, and of course them getting the titles on Sunday night. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the future. But I think that if you look at Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, two very similar kind of good-looking guys, good moveset between the two of them, and I think if they give them a good tag team name and maybe some matching outfits, I think they could be a long-term tag team. I certainly hope so after Sunday night. But then we move on to our next match, Tommy, and it's Bayley versus Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship. So Charlotte comes out, as you would expect, to a fantastic reception from her hometown fans. Now, Bayley doesn't appear to have changed her character too much, certainly before this match started, since showing a more sinister side a couple of weeks ago when she realigned with the recently returning heel, Sasha Banks. But she definitely gets the boos as she comes down to the ring with Charlotte, starting the match very much the aggressor. Towards the tail end of this match, we see the official keeping Charlotte away from Bayley, who was on the floor in the corner, who she'd just taken a bit of a beating from Charlotte Flair. We see Bayley down at the canvas, undoing and removing the bottom turnbuckle before Charlotte runs towards Bayley, only for Bayley to drive Charlotte face first into the exposed bottom turnbuckle before hooking the challenger's leg and getting the surprise 3 count. So Charlotte was on the offense for 99% of this match up until that moment. Bayley then quickly grabs her championship belt and gets the hell out of there. Charlotte looks on in disbelief, having dominated the match, as I said, from the opening bell, and only to lose to a very heelish tactic from Bayley there. And if we were in any doubt as to whether Bayley was a heel or not prior to this match, I think her actions here confirms it for sure. So give us your thoughts on this match. Once again, it was one of those matches, like a few of these matches on Clash of Champions, that didn't go very long, quite short. I think it only went maybe 5 minutes, and Bayley is able to retain, and I think she's certainly cementing her heel character in this match.
Yeah, I liked the heel tactic from Bayley, but unfortunately that's the only thing I really liked about this match. This was one that right next to Becky and Sasha and probably Rollins and Strowman, this was one of the matches I was really looking forward to. So when they got going, they went second on the card, which is, I believe at the WrestleMania you went to, I think Charlotte and Asuka also went second. So I was like, all right, they're going to have a great match here. Like, let's get into this. What a great way to start the show. You have a hot tag match. Now you're going to get this match with the hometown crowd solidly behind Charlotte. And like I told you, before we got on here, just last month when they had TakeOver Cardiff and that great moment of the crowd solidly behind Mark Andrews and Webster, and the crowd's so excited for them. And at the end of the day, they get the titles, they get this big win, and it's this incredible moment that I'm sure being there live for had to be a top moment on the show. Yeah. And now you come here to Clash of Champions, you have Cedric Alexander on the pre-show. He gets beaten pretty quick. Charlotte gets beaten so fast he can't even get into the match. It's like, I don't necessarily need the hometown guys to win, but give the crowd a chance to get into their matches and to feel excitement over a potential win. So I thought it was a little disappointing.
And why didn't the referee kind of reverse the decision when he must have noticed the exposed turnbuckle at some point after Charlotte, either while she was getting pinned or after she was pinned? So yes, interesting shenanigans there from Bayley. Another match that I quite enjoyed was the Revival versus the New Day. The New Day going into this match, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Xavier Woods gets taken out of the match fairly early on as the Revival take turns on beating Big E in their half of the ring. Woods does eventually get the hot tag, getting a close near fall from a DDT. The Revival recover to hit the Shatter Machine on Big E on the outside. The Revival target Xavier Woods' previously injured left knee before connecting with the Shatter Machine on Woods, this time in the center of the ring. However, Dash chooses not to cover, but instead applies a reverse figure four leg lock on Xavier Woods, obviously taking advantage of the leg injury, causing Woods to tap out, bringing an end to this match, giving us new SmackDown Tag Team Champions in the shape of the Revival. So Dash gets on the mic at the top of the ramp to say that the WWE Universe are welcome and that the Revival are now the best tag team on the planet. No more hip swivels and trumpets. We are back to the old school, they said. They also went on to say that Randy Orton will overcome Kofi Kingston to become the new WWE champion later on. We'll cover that match very shortly. This was another short but interesting match, in my opinion, and we have new SmackDown Tag Champions. And before I hand it over to yourself, Tommy, I just want a bit of an interesting point here that the Revival are the only tag team in WWE history to have now held the NXT tag team titles, the Raw tag team titles, and now the SmackDown tag team titles. So a few months ago, a lot of people had the Revival pegged for making a jump to AEW. They were kind of in some horrible segments on Monday Night Raw, not being utilised very well. But recently they've been Raw Tag Team Champions and now SmackDown Tag Team Champions. So they are being used a lot better and they looked very good on Sunday night as well. So Tommy, over to you. What were your thoughts on this match?
Yeah, that's a great point. I hadn't realized that, but you're right. They, the Revival. It's good to see that WWE is realizing what they have in the Revival, because I'd heard those rumors that people were saying they were going to be leaving, and then Vince McMahon kind of said, hey, we have a good spot for you, and it's good to see that he does seem to see what he has in the Revival, because the Revival's a great team. Only thing I didn't love about this is that they were on opposite brands, so now technically guys who are on Raw have the SmackDown titles. But what I did like about it was this now set up a bit of intrigue for the Orton-Kofi match, because what they've been doing a lot of is AJ and the OC all have all the titles. The New Day has all the titles. So when the Revival wins the tag titles, I think there was a thought of like, oh, wow, is Orton going to get the title at the end of the night? And I think that really drove that point to really get at least me a little more excited in that match later on in the show. But as far as the in-ring action here, I mean, just two of the best teams on the roster. New Day definitely don't need the titles, so it's good to see what the Revival can do. And with the draft coming up, it's easy to move them over to SmackDown.
Yeah, the Revival's definitely proved that they are top guys indeed. So then on to the match that I alluded to earlier on that I thought should have been on the kickoff show, the match for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship. So Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss going in as champions, going up against Fire and Desire, Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, of course. So this was another short match with Alexa having taken a bump on the outside. Nikki finished the match by executing a swinging neckbreaker off the top rope on Mandy Rose, winning the match for her team and retaining the Women's Tag Team Championship. So now, Tommy, I quite enjoy these two teams in general. However, I can't help but feel disappointed that two of the best talents in the women's roster, Kairi Sane and Asuka, not even in the picture. And for me, this felt like another nothing match that could easily have been a kickoff match instead of the AJ and Cedric match, as I mentioned earlier. But yes, like I say, they could have included Asuka and Kairi Sane to make it a triple threat. They could have included that in the build up to this match. But yes, it was okay for what it was, this match, and Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss managed to hang on to their titles when all is said and done. But what were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm with you on liking both of these teams. I don't know if you've gotten a chance, but Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose do a YouTube channel called Demandy's Donuts, and I always find them to be very... They're just awesome personalities, and so I don't know if their real personalities have actually translated so much to their personalities on SmackDown. So as far as the build for this match too, I think we're past the idea of like I'm better looking than you, which is kind of what they've been doing with Mandy Rose and Nikki Cross, and Mandy saying that Nikki Cross is ugly or whatever it is. I think that's kind of like, that's pretty cheap. And at this point, like it kind of doesn't make much sense with what they're doing. So I didn't really love the build. It was kind of a bit of a nothing match, but at the end of the day, I am glad they continue to build up Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss, because I'm sure at some point they're going to split those two up. But I'm glad that right now they're continuing there. As I refer to them, they're almost like a new age kind of 2019 version of the Rock and Sock Connection, where you've got a little crazy, you've got somebody with a ton of charisma, and here they are together, and it's cool. It's a good team.
Yeah. Well, on to the next match, and it was for the Intercontinental Championship. So you mentioned that is it the 40th anniversary of the Intercontinental Championship, Tommy?
Yeah, that's what they were promoting, and they also have, I think they did like a 6-hour top 20 matches that define the Intercontinental Championship on the WWE Network. I haven't gotten a chance to check that out, but yeah, to celebrate the 40th anniversary, they did a roundtable on YouTube, and it was Christian, Randy Orton, and The Miz, and it was cool to see Orton like just having a normal conversation. Like I feel like he's somebody who you don't see doing too many things like this, so it was an interesting watch. I liked it.
Most definitely. And former, I think, 8-time champion The Miz makes his entrance first, and just as we were expecting Nakamura's theme music to play, we get Sami Zayn out to complain about his neck injury sustained on Tuesday night at the hands of The Undertaker, before introducing the King of Strong Style, Shinsuke Nakamura. I really like this combination of Sami Zayn and Nakamura, with Sami appearing to be a bit of a mouthpiece or an advocate for Nakamura, which could be good for Nakamura's character, I believe. Sami briefly gave the fans a bit of a running commentary on the mic at ringside, which got a lot of crowd heat, calling The Miz the king of soft style wrestling, and taking it to the fans before the microphone got cut off. The match soon goes to the outside, where Nakamura drops a knee on the back of Miz's neck when the Miz was draped along the ring apron. The Miz then strikes with repeated running knees in the corner to get a 2 count off of DDT. The Miz sidesteps a Kinshasa before applying a figure 4 leg lock, and after another distraction from Sami Zayn on the outside, Nakamura did hit a Kinshasa but was only able to get a 2 count. The Miz does manage to deliver a skull-crushing finale, only for Sami to get up on the apron, sending the Miz. For Sami Zayn to get up on the apron, sending the Miz on a bit of a merry-go-round chase around the ring, with the Miz finding nothing but another Kinshasa from Nakamura. The Miz gets rolled back into the ring for a third and final Kinshasa, and Nakamura covers and retains his championship. So a pinfall victory there for Shinsuke. For me, as a fan of Nakamura, it was great to see him retain the championship on a pay-per-view. I'm also digging this combination of Sami Zayn and Nakamura, and I'm interested to see where that leads in the future. So The Miz versus Shinsuke Nakamura. What's your take on this one then, Tommy?
Yeah, I thought this was. I actually like this match. I thought it was pretty good. I like the. I love the pairing, as you said, of Shinsuke and Sami Zayn. It's especially cool because it's a tie back to the fact that Shinsuke's first match in WWE with NXT was with Sami, which was a great match, and it's cool to have them there. I think Sami's super entertaining. That said, I was relieved to see Miz take the mic and toss it up the aisle, get that away from Sami, because if he kept going with that live commentary throughout the entire match, I think it would have gotten like real old real fast.
Yeah, that was a hell of a pitch from The Miz as well. He's got a good throw on him.
Absolutely, threw it all the way through the entranceway there. So I thought that was really cool. Miz is just, I don't know if he's working as a babyface. He's had so many losses now. Him losing all those matches to Shane McMahon, I just don't think did him any favors. And I will say, I was pleasantly surprised to see Nakamura keep the belt, because I thought for sure they were going to have Miz tie the record, which they didn't mention was held by AEW champion Chris Jericho. Yeah. I had that at the back of my mind as well, thinking he's 8-time champion, Jericho's a 9-time champion. They're going to give it to Miz, aren't they? But they swerved us, and WWE are very, very good at that. But following this match, we get confirmation that the brand split will indeed commence on SmackDown and Raw in a few weeks' time, where we are told that the brands, there will be brand exclusivity and none of this blurring of the lines
and wild card nonsense that we've had, which we've had pretty much since the very first draft a decade and a half ago. So, Tommy, are you looking forward to the draft? And this time it's for real. There will be a proper brand exclusivity. Take that for what it's worth. But what's your thoughts? Like I say, I think the draft takes place in a few weeks' time. Tommy.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the draft shows themselves, but I'm really happy about the fact that they're going back to separate brands. I'll never forget going to the Raw after WrestleMania and being prepared to buy tickets to the SmackDown after WrestleMania so I could have been there live for that first moment where Kofi came out as world champ. And then they just brought him out on Raw. And I was like, well, I don't need to go to SmackDown. It feels like they haven't. I feel like SmackDown was such an exciting brand when it first came out, when they had the brand separate, where you had Ambrose and Styles at the top of the card there. And when Daniel Bryan was the general manager. And each brand really had its own identity. And I think that's absolutely necessary if you want it to be something that succeeds. You don't want people to feel they can get all the wrestlers on one show because there's no reason to watch the second show then. So I like this idea quite a bit, and I'm excited about it. How about you?
Yeah, no, I am too, and I think that with Fox taking over SmackDown in a few weeks' time, I think from the 4th of October is the first show on Fox. I think they're going to have a closer handle on things, and they're going to want a more sports-based presentation. So I think that they're not going to want too much shenanigans in terms of Raw talent turning up on SmackDown and vice versa. So I think it's for real this time. And I did mention on your live Clash of Champions preview the other day that I wouldn't be surprised when they do the draft to see Brock Lesnar get drafted to SmackDown.
Yes.
And for him to kind of kick a bit of ass over there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And certainly with as I mentioned, Fox wanting more of a more serious product on their channel with the SmackDown team. I think that Brock Lesnar will be a fitting addition to that roster. But on to the next match. And this was the match that I think a lot of people were looking forward to the most going into this one. Certainly I was. And I know that the Wrestling with John's Facebook community was looking forward to this match a lot as well. And it's Becky Lynch versus Sasha Banks for the Raw Women's Championship. So in my opinion, this could easily have been a main event match. Could have gone on last, especially with the heat that Sasha Banks has got since returning on Raw a few weeks ago. But some of the key spots in this match, Sasha was in control in the early going here, getting an early 2 count from a Meteora. Sasha catches Lynch in a back statement with Becky able to reverse into a Bexploder. There's plenty of back and forth action between these two, with Sasha getting another close near fall from another Meteora, this time off the second turnbuckle. Lynch then applies a disarmer, managing to apply it twice, as a matter of fact, with Banks managing to escape the hold twice in close succession. Becky goes to the top for a missile drop kick, gets another 2 count there. There's a "This is awesome" chant from the fans as Becky stomps away on Banks in the corner. But Banks is able to hit a backstabber before applying her bank statement, which only gets broken up as the two wrestlers get close to the ropes. Banks gets a chair from the outside, jabbing it into the stomach of the champ before getting another close near fall once again back inside the ring. However, as Banks goes to use the steel chair once again, with the referee pulling the chair away, Becky grabs the chair to hit Banks with it, only for Lynch to accidentally hit the referee instead. And with the referee down, Becky strikes Banks with another chair shot. The two then fight into the crowd, into the concessions area, through the arena. Becky then drags Banks down the stairs by her hair as the fight continues back towards the ring. Banks drives Becky into the barricade at ringside. Then back inside the ring, the chair comes into play once more, with Becky driving Sasha's head into the steel before applying the disarmer while taking a seat on the steel chair just to add extra leverage. But by this point, Tommy, the match was already over, with Becky losing by disqualification after striking the referee earlier on. Extra officials come down to the ring to stop the onslaught from Becky, and they tend to the wounded boss. So, Tommy, this won't be getting any 5-star reviews from Dave Meltzer. However, it was the most exciting match of the card so far. and was probably the best title defense, in my opinion, from Becky Lynch since she won the championship at WrestleMania, and possibly the most interesting feud that she's had since her feud with Ronda Rousey around that same time. So what's your opinion of this match? It was a good one, and the crowd were well into it. They definitely enjoyed this one, but what about yourself?
Yeah, I love this match. It's probably, there was a lot of heat in the main event, and so I was really into that one too. But this was definitely one of them that I was really I enjoyed. I love that the violence they had in there when utilizing the chair for the disarmer, utilizing I think they used like a ring post for the bank statement. They were going at each other, definitely not holding anything back. And I'm with you. And I thought going in, I said, hey, if they're gonna get 3 different events out of Lacey Evans and Becky Lynch, this one's definitely not going to be a one and done. But at the end, it made me think, like, it made a lot of sense. Hey, these guys can't keep it in the ring. Now they're going to have to. We'll put them in the Hell in a Cell, which is where I assume they're going to go. And I thought it was great. I always love when they go into the crowd just because the crowd's so excited. You always got the people trying to get the selfies. They took it up in the concession stand. I think Sasha was like, I think at one point Becky poured mustard all over Sasha's back, and so it was cool. I think that I think the crowd even enjoyed the violence so much that there wasn't as many boos as there normally is for non-finish. Like the crowd was like, "All right, we get it." So it was cool, and I really enjoyed the match.
Yeah, definitely, and I agree with all of your sentiments there. This was my favourite match of the night, to be honest with you. The main event, yeah, it comes a close second, but this was a really good match. But the kind of semi-final placing, no, it wasn't the semi-final, it's the third from the top. Kofi Kingston versus get it right, Kofi Kingston versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. So this is their rematch following their rather disappointing double count out at SummerSlam last month. The match here starts to pick up after Orton blasts Kofi off the ring apron and into the barricade at ringside. Orton bounces Kofi's head off of the announce table before dropping Kofi across the barricade and then suplexing Kofi on the hard floor on the outside, then delivering 2 belly-to-back suplexes on the announce tables. Kofi recovers to connect with a springboard double axe handle and a boom drop. Orton catches Kingston early, turning a Trouble in Paradise into a backbreaker for a 2 count there for Orton. Kofi is able to backdrop Orton over the top rope and to the outside before delivering like a Fosbury flop backflip over the top rope, just managing to connect on his opponent there. Kofi then gets the win via an SOS. He nearly gets the win via an SOS. Randy executes a very good kind of snap power slam and a draping DDT on the champ before eventually dropping Kofi with an RKO, with Kofi managing to get his foot on the rope to break the count. But after avoiding a punt kick from Orton, Kofi delivers a last gasp Trouble in Paradise, hook in the leg, gets a 3 count, and Kofi Kingston manages to hold on to that WWE Championship one more time there, Tommy. So this match was you saw a lot more offense from Randy Orton compared to Kofi Kingston. However, it was the leader of the New Day that managed to retain. So going back to the earlier match, the New Day against the Revival, he was expecting all of the members of the New Day to lose their championships here, but it didn't happen in this match. Kofi managed to hang on to his WWE Championship against Randy Orton, possibly setting up a third match at Hell in a Cell. But what's your thoughts on this one then, Tommy?
Yeah, I actually, it was one of these things where they were going back and forth, and when Orton hit the RKO out of nowhere, I thought, that's it, Orton's going to get it. Because I've been building up this idea that Randy Orton is going to be the guy to have the title going into SmackDown on Fox and lose it the first night there to Roman Reigns. They could build that up and then have Roman as the face of SmackDown. But I do feel that with Kofi getting the win here, I think this was the biggest win of Kofi's kind of reign thus far as champion. And for him to finally get that win, that elusive win over Orton after all these years, I think he needed it, and I think if they wanted to, I think it really solidifies Kofi as champion. I know he's been champ since WrestleMania, but I think this was the match that really put it over the top for me, and I'm into it. But I do think, specifically your idea of Brock Lesnar going over to SmackDown, I could definitely see a deal where he does and takes that title off Kofi.
Yeah, you can see as SmackDown goes over to Fox, you can see Kofi's days as champion dwindling, in my opinion. But there's going to be lots of challengers out there wanting to take the gold from over his shoulder. This is the semi-final match, Roman Reigns versus Eric Rowan. And kind of the interesting gimmick about this one is it's no disqualification as well. So the story heading into this match was a little bit odd, a little bit drawn out, with some people liking the Who Attacked Roman Reigns storyline and many others not so much. We also saw Rowan turn his back on Daniel Bryan in the lead up to this match as well. But early on in this match, we get Rowan gets driven into the steel ring steps before the match goes into the fans. There's kendo sticks pulled out from under the ring. There's a trash can used in the audience. The match heads back towards the ring as Roman connects with a drive-by. Rowan then leaves Roman Reigns. He levels him with a running crossbody at ringside, which I find is very impressive. Such a big man, Eric Rowan, that when he does that running crossbody, he just looks ever so impressive. Rowan then he's absolutely on a brutal tear here, dropping Roman against the LED edge of the ring, which looked pretty brutal. Reigns then gets a close near fall after driving the steel steps into the face of Eric Rowan, followed by a Superman punch, but only gets a 2 count. Rowan then power bombs Reigns through an announce table. Rowan then nails Roman Reigns with the timekeeper's bell before driving Reigns through a second table, this time with the iron claw. The match then heads towards the stage area where Rowan uses the jib camera, which eventually gets utilised more by Roman Reigns. Instead, Roman delivers a Roman Reigns. It's got similar names, Tommy. Similar names. I'm getting confused here. Roman Reigns delivers a Superman punch, and with Rowan retreating back towards the ring, and in a shocking turn of events, Reigns gets ambushed by the big boots of the returning Luke Harper, who's been sat at home for the last 4 or 5 months. Roman gets tossed back into the ring, where Harper launches Rowan hard into the corner, into a flailing Roman Reigns before Rowan finishes the match with another iron claw, gets the 1, 2, 3. So Tommy, going into this match, I couldn't help but think it should have been Harper in this spot instead of Rowan. However, my wish came true at the end of the match as Harper returned to reunite the former Bludgeon Brothers, Eric Rowan and Luke Harper, back together to defeat Roman Reigns. So no Daniel Bryan in this match. I was half expecting him to come out and be a part of this match because he's part of the storyline, of course, and recently took that iron claw from Rowan in the build-up to this match. But an interesting turn of events, and I think the no disqualification stipulation made this match better than it would have been if it had been a standard one fall contained within a ring, of course. But what were your thoughts on this no DQ match?
Yeah, I mean, they pulled it off. When Rowan was coming out on the SmackDown before this show to do a promo, I think I and a lot of fans were like, oh man, are they kidding with this? Like, really, Rowan now is going to be doing promos? But it worked. And then they got everybody involved using that jib cam together. And by the end of that, people were chanting, this is awesome. Everyone was behind Roman Reigns. I think that carried over to a really nice match here on Clash of Champions. I think it was refreshing. It was something completely different. I think Rowan really busted it in this match. He gave everything he had. And I think at the end, that moment of having Luke Harper get involved was just so... it was great. I think everyone was like, Harper's back. Like, you knew this guy was there and was cleared and was able to get back in the ring and was just for whatever reason being sidelined. And now here he is, and they're both going to get a shot to kind of stand on their own. Though I do still think that this is going to lead to a tag match with the two of the former Bludgeons against Bryan and Roman, and that
interesting. That would be an interesting match, and possibly a match we could be seeing at the next pay-per-view, Tommy. So but this match was better than I thought it was going to be going into it. It certainly exceeded my expectations. I really enjoyed it, and quite refreshing to see Eric Rowan getting a big win over Roman Reigns. So a big win for him.
So he for putting him over.
Most definitely. And then we're into our main event. So this is Seth Rollins versus Braun Strowman. So these two had a match earlier on in the night where they were tag partners, but unfortunately lost the Raw tag team titles to the team of Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. But in this match, Braun started this match like a bull in a china shop, but soon gets nailed by 3 super kicks and a huge frog splash from Seth Rollins. But Rollins could only get a 1 count from that series of moves. Rollins then sidesteps a shoulder barge from Braun Strowman, sending the big man into the ring post. Rollins delivers 2 springboard flying knees, but is caught on the 3rd by Strowman before taking the match to the outside with a barrage of running shoulder tackles. Seth then appears to have Strowman rattled as he delivers 2 suicide dives through the ropes. Then we see Strowman hit a move I don't think you'd ever see a man of his size do, in the form of a frog splash. There was a scary moment where Strowman kind of wobbled on the top rope there. That would have been disastrous had he fallen backwards, but somehow managed to execute the move and managed to get a 2 3/4 count there. Very nearly won the match on that frog splash, but appeared to injure his own knee in the process. Rollins hooks in a sleeper and then delivers 3 consecutive curb stomps, but Rollins still couldn't get the pinfall on the big man. Rollins decides to change tactics slightly, used a pedigree instead to put the monster down, and then 1 final curb stomp with Rollins hooking the leg and somehow getting the 1, 2, 3 to retain his Universal Championship. That was a much better match than I was expecting going into it, and I thought both wrestlers put on a hell of a show, a hell of a main event. With Rollins successfully retaining the championship against the monster among men. But just when we thought everything was done for this pay-per-view, and we even had the copyright logo at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, the lights went out. We heard some strange, scary music. Then we saw the Fiend, who had Seth Rollins across his leg for the Sister Abigail. The lights go out and come back on again, this time with the Fiend applying the mandible claw to Seth Rollins before the lights go out for the final time. So, Tommy, that was a great main event. Lots of action, plenty of false finishes, with Seth delivering another win and a successful title defense in the process. However, what everyone's going to be talking about after this show goes off the air is the Fiend attacking Seth Rollins and almost certainly setting himself up with a championship match against Rollins in the next pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell. So a good main event, but an even better ending to the show, Tommy.
Absolutely, yeah. I think I really think this might have been Braun Strowman's best one-on-one match he's had. Obviously, he had the great Fatal 4-Way at the end of SummerSlam a couple years ago, but I think in terms of one-on-one matches, I think this might have been his best one. Him and Rollins really brought it, and there was a time in the match, I want to say it was right after the 3 curb stomps, where it looked like Strowman had him with the running power slam, and I thought if he had hit it, that was it. I was like, he's going to win the belt, but he didn't, and Rollins keeps the belt. I wonder if this was maybe one time too many that Braun's come up a little short here. I think the crowd was really ready for him to get the belt here again, and this is a lot of times this guy has failed, but he doesn't get it. They want to keep it with Rollins, and I do think that for what they're going with Rollins and The Fiend, it makes a lot more sense to do it Rollins and The Fiend as opposed to Strowman and The Fiend. But great moment at the end, like you said, stealing a page out of NXT's book with the copyright there, the promotion for the Chronicle of Sasha Banks goes out, and then boom, The Fiend shows up. Huge ovation for The Fiend, and great moment there. It was one of those things that made you want to tune in the next night, which I think a pay-per-view should do.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier. It was that hook that's going to get you tuned into Monday Night Raw and going to definitely get you watching the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view to see what happens between the Fiend. Well, I don't know if it was announced on Monday Night Raw, which happened a few hours ago because I was fast asleep in my bed, but we probably would have seen the Fiend on Raw, and almost certainly some developments towards his match against Seth Rollins, or certainly some repercussions following Sunday night's pay-per-view. But definitely a great way to end it. And it was a pay-per-view of 2 halves, really. You had some matches that were kind of done, blink and you miss them sort of matches that were done in 4 or 5 minutes. You did have a few highlights. I really enjoyed the Revival winning the SmackDown Tag Team titles, and the fact that they're now probably the most successful tag team in modern WWE history anyway, certainly having won the NXT, the Raw, and now the SmackDown titles, and an accolade that can't be matched by anybody on the WWE roster, certainly. you had that excellent match between Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, and like I said, I think that was possibly the best match that Becky's had since her win against Ronda Rousey and Charlotte at WrestleMania, and certainly the most interesting feud she's been involved in since then as well. And this great main event, and let's say the highlights and that very memorable image of the Fiend, not once but twice, putting Seth Rollins out of action as the show goes off the air in darkness. So what were your overall thoughts and your overall highlights of Clash of Champions then, Tommy?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was really, I mean, like you said, it was like a tale of two different shows. The matches that were in the undercard were really quick, but the bigger matches got time to develop. And it was interesting because when the show went off the air, it went off the air my time around 10:30, so it was a 3.5-hour show. Part of me was like, why did they cut the matches so short if they still had an extra half hour? Why'd they get rid of the King of the Ring final if they still had an extra half hour? But I think WWE is cognizant of the fact that their shows are going very long.
Yeah.
And I think they know that the crowd gets burnt by the shows being very long. So I think they're making a concerted effort to kind of make the shows 3.5 hours. And in doing so, makes it a little bit of an easier watch. You know, if you think, 4 hours isn't even going to be enough and we're going to go to 4.5, 5 hours, you're going to be really fried going into those shows. So I think it was good that it was 3.5 hours. It was good that each one of the matches had enough time to develop there at the end. But yeah, so I thought it was a pretty good show overall.
Yeah, I've got to echo your sentiments once again. I don't think there was anything terrible on the show, to be honest with you. I don't think there was any dud matches. And like I say, had any of the matches had a few minutes longer, I'm sure that we would have had even more fantastic matches to have been talking about tonight. But some of them were cut short. But on the whole, it was a good show, and certainly the matches between Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, and then the main events will kind of will be remembered fondly for being fairly good matches, which kind of, regardless of the undercard, it will kind of make you think more fondly of the pay-per-view overall because of those matches, and of course the ending with the Fiend. But overall, I think it was definitely a thumbs-up show from me as well. But so I'd say it does make us look forward to the Hell in a Cell. It does set up a few matches there. Almost certainly a rematch between Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch, possibly inside a Hell in a Cell cage. I'd be surprised if we don't get the Fiend and Seth Rollins in a Hell in a Cell cage as well. But looking at the kind of the pairings and how the matches went down tonight, Tommy, are there any other rematches or possibly matches that could be set up for the next pay-per-view in your opinion?
I think they're definitely going to go with Fiend and Seth Rollins. I think they'll definitely go with Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch again. Have a rematch there. They could definitely go with Charlotte and Bayley again. I don't know if they necessarily want to do that because I don't think they want to have Charlotte continue to lose. But that being said, and I think they're building up Bayley's heel character. But with that being said, I love the idea of Roman Reigns and Daniel Bryan against the former Bludgeon Brothers now, like being able to do promos and together. I think that could be a lot of fun. And I'm interested to see where do you think they go with Braun Strowman now?
Well, I don't know. To be honest with you, there's no obvious next opponent for Braun Strowman, so he may not even be on the next pay-per-view, in my opinion, because this is the fifth, maybe the sixth time that he's had a championship opportunity. He had a couple of shots against Brock Lesnar. I think dating back for the last 2.5 years, he's been having these championship matches. He's always fallen short. He's had a few unsuccessful matches against other opponents as well. But I don't know. I think if they were going to pull the trigger on Braun Strowman, they would have done it by now. And I think that if and when they do finally pull the trigger on Braun Strowman and give him a big title win, I don't think it will mean half as much as it could have had they have given him the title much sooner. But I don't know. It looks quite bleak for Braun Strowman at this stage, because if you look at Sunday night in particular as an isolated instance, he lost twice that night. So, he lost the tag team titles, although he wasn't the man that got pinned, and he lost the main event. So I don't know. they would need a miracle worker, possibly in the shape of a Paul Heyman, to turn him around, maybe give him a shift in character. I think that he's been a babyface recently, but maybe to give him a bit of a heel turn, bit of a heel turn makeover could be what he needs, so that he can go on a bit of a rampage and start turning trucks over again and start running through the babyface roster. But it's hard to take him seriously with all of these title losses, to be honest with you, Tommy. So it's a bit of a quandary as to what you do next with the big man, because he's got all of the attributes to be, the face of the company. He's got a fantastic look and a great presence about him. He's not the strongest on the microphone, but I think his size and his ability in the ring kind of outweighs anything he can't do on the mic. And I was really impressed with the guy in that main event. That frog splash was phenomenal. Yeah. And you've seen another big man deliver a frog splash recently in the shape of Walter, when he managed to defeat Tyler Bate in that classic match in Cardiff a couple of weeks back. But that seems to be a move that Walter tends to use. But Walter's not even as big as Braun Strowman. But to see a guy as big as that execute a move like that was really, really impressive. It was kind of parallels of Brock Lesnar doing a shooting star press, really, a move that you wouldn't expect from such a big man. And we haven't seen Brock Lesnar do that for several years because of what happened the last time he tried it, of course. But yes, that one is definitely a question that we're all, interested to find out where it goes for Braun Strowman. But once again, another unsuccessful match for Strowman on this occasion. But I think the right person won, to be honest with you. I think that they definitely needed to keep the belt on Seth Rollins. I think he's had a fairly good championship reign so far. And what's he, 2-time Universal Champion now? And I think a match between him and The Fiend would be a bit more interesting, in my opinion, than Braun Strowman and The Fiend's. There's definitely a lot more you can do with The Fiend and Seth Rollins, in my opinion. But Tommy, that brings us to the end of this episode. So I want to thank you so much for being a big part of Wrestling with Johners and for being a big part of episode 67. So thank you so much. And if any of my listeners want to follow you or get in touch with you on social media, what's your your Twitter, your Instagram, your Facebook handles? Where can they find you out there on the internet, Tommy?
Yeah, no, definitely. Welcome everyone to do that. I can be found on Twitter at WatchWrestlePod. That's probably where I'm the most active. I do also have an Instagram, Watchalong Wrestling. Facebook I'm not on, but I heard you mention Facebook, and that might be something I want to check out. It seems like that's something people get into, so I might have to look at that.
Definitely. So thank you, Tommy, and hopefully we'll get you back on another episode in the near future. Really appreciate it. It's always fun to have you on the show. So whatever you get up to soon on your wrestling adventures, we'll hopefully get back in touch with you and find out about those very soon. But I think you mentioned off air that you might be going to one of the live NXTs fairly soon, Tommy.
Yeah, that it's something I'm excited about. It's something I'm hoping that I'm able to get down there on October 2nd. I think that show is going to be great. I thought for a while that the show was going to be built up to bring back Enzo and Cass. Seems like Cass is having some issues. So it doesn't look like that's going to happen, which, I'm fine with that not happening. But I think that's going to be a show that is going to just be great to be there live for. And I'm glad you got to go to TakeOver Cardiff. I know that that show ended up being fantastic, and you had awesome seats for it. So
yeah, I really had a good time. But it looks like you're in for a treat on October the 2nd, because that's going to be the first live NXT that goes head-to-head with AEW's Wednesday Night Dynamite, of course. So that's going to be a hell of a show. I'm sure that they're going to really stack up the card there to go against AEW on that night. So best of luck, Tommy, and we'll catch up with you again soon. But please keep it tuned to the Wrestling with Johners podcast for all of your weekly NXT and NXT UK updates. We do cover WWE and AEW pay-per-views along with New Japan and Progress and Indie Wrestling. So there's so much to listen to on the Wrestling with Johners podcast. Keep it tuned. If you have enjoyed listening to the Wrestling with Johners podcast, please don't forget to spread the word. Tell your friends and tell your family, and let's get even more people listening to this podcast. So please subscribe to the podcast now wherever you are listening to us, and don't miss out on a single episode. We'll be back again on Friday with our usual weekly recap of the aforementioned NXT and NXT UK. But from myself and from Tommy, this has been our Clash of Champions review. So in the meantime, take care, have yourself a great week, and we'll catch up with you all again soon.